the wind extinguishes a candle, but it fuels a fire. So the question is, what are you? When life hits you, whether it's with an energy challenge, a health challenge, or a work challenge, or a relationship challenge, or all three at once, what do? The old me, and me when I'm not feeling as heroically enlightened, I would go off the rails and I would do all the things I know I shouldn't be doing, frankly. And this is when the binge eating, binge watching, binge drinking, fill in the blank comes in. But what if instead we double down on our protocol and we do the things that we know we should do?
Welcome to the Mountain Tough Podcast, brought to you by Sig Sauer. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mountain Tough Podcast. We are so glad that you are here. We are so glad that you're diving into this content week after week. We love bringing it to you, and we love hearing from these guests. Our goal is to bring you inspirational guests week after week. It's that iron sharpens iron concept that these folks are inspiring. They're the best of the best. They're going to help us level up. They're going to help us transform our life. They're going to help us live that abundant, virtuous life as we pursue our passions, our dreams that we're going after. If you're a first-time listener or a loyal listener and you haven't left a rating or review yet wherever you get your podcasts, those do mean a ton to us here at Mountain Tough. The Mountain Tough team loves reviewing those. We're always trying to sharpen ourselves. And with the algorithm, the rankings and reviews help get these episodes out to more people to transform more lives. So if you haven't done that yet, that would mean a ton to me. Around the lab with the Mountain Tough crew here in Bozeman, Montana, there's a lot of amazing things going on. And I did want to let you guys know about some new daily workouts that are headed your way. Last year in the Mountain Tough app, we did launch the MGD program. That's a minimal gear daily. That program has been one of the most popular programs we have in our app. It's a fresh minimal gear workout. It's delivered into the app every 24 hours, and then it expires every 24 hours. It's fully coached, so all you need to do is hit play, and Sarah, Nick, or myself will be coaching you essentially live, and there's 2 Mountain Tough athletes there as well that you can compete and benchmark with. That program requires hardly any gear. It's a kettlebell, a set of dumbbells, a cooler, box bench, and a pull-up bar. And that concept has really been extremely viral for the Mountain Tough community, and a lot of that is because it expires every 24 hours. So if you miss it, you don't even get to see what the community did. And we are replicating that. So we are creating some more programs headed your way. We're going to have a gym daily where you are going to have some gym equipment. We have a mobility daily headed your way. And we're also working on an elite level product that is brand new every 24 hours as well. So keep watch for those. We'll be announcing those across all social channels, and you'll see them launch in the Mountain Tough app as well. Transitioning over to today's guest. Today's guest is Brian Johnson. Brian is the founder and CEO of the Heroic Social Training Program, and he's the author of Areté. I bought that book about 6 months ago, and it is phenomenal. What Brian has done is he's basically studied philosophers and the Stoics for about 20 years, but he combines that research with modern science, and he breaks that down in Areté day by day to really activate your heroic potential. It's become a great resource for me. I go through that book every single morning. Last year, I was doing Ryan Holiday's Daily Stoic. This book from Brian is similar, but I found it to be extremely more helpful because it is a lot more practical to today's age, and he relates it really well with modern science, which I personally like, matching it up with what human performance science is saying right now. He is a phenomenal guest. Brian really kind of blew my mind on this episode with practical wisdom you can apply in your life tomorrow. So stand by with my conversation with Brian Johnson. Your mindset work in everything you've done is really phenomenal. I was certainly curious on when you kind of started studying all the Stoics and philosophers. How did that journey even start for you?
Awesome. We in right now? We're kicking it.
We're going. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I've always been passionate about what makes great people great. The people on my wall back here, the heroes I really admire who lived a noble, heroic life, and truly made a contribution to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And studied psychology as an undergrad at UCLA, but there was none of this stuff going on at that point. It was all the negative side. Positive psychology hadn't been launched yet. And then I found the Stoics like 25 years ago. They come up, when you're reading everything, even before Ryan Holiday and everybody else made Stoicism such a big thing in the modern kind of era. Back in the day, you'd see a little bit about Epictetus, a little bit about Aurelius, and a little bit about Seneca. And I'm like, who are these guys? So I started drilling in to the meditations, letters from a Stoic, and the discourses and Enchiridion, and just fell in love with them. I've got Epictetus and Aurelius behind me, my two favorite heroes, my favorite teacher. Epictetus' intensity, and his logical precision, and then Aurelius and his humanity and his humility and his leadership, my two biggest inspirations. And I've been into them for a long time.
And you've spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours studying the Stoics, and not just the Stoics, other philosophers as well. And all of that research was on your own time. This is something you pursued completely on your own, correct?
Dude, I was doing the math the other day. I'm way over 10,000 at this point, ancient wisdom, modern science. So I built and sold a business when I was 24, 25, and I had enough, to take a few years off to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I became, a philosopher in the etymological sense of the word, a lover of wisdom. And, traveled a bit and studied Socrates in Athens and Jesus in Jerusalem and Rumi in Konya, Turkey, and Aurelius in the Danube of Hungary. This is like 2001. Time flies when you're having fun. 22 years ago now. But just went all in. I wanted to understand what ancient wisdom traditions and faith traditions had to say, and then what modern science has to say, and everything in between. And what I found was they all say the same exact thing. You can strip away the cultural differences that exist, of course, in different cultures and different eras. But at the end of the day, they're all telling us, again, the name of my book, the tattoo on this arm is Areté. It's the one-word answer the Stoics would give you on how to live a good life. Live with virtue, live with excellence, be your best self, moment to moment to moment. When you do that, there's no room for the regret, anxiety, disillusionment, depression, etc. Studied everything I could, as deeply as I could, and just have been working hard to try to integrate it into a meaningful, coherent philosophy we can apply to our modern lives.
That's amazing. And in the book Areté, your new book, you've really distilled down all of that research over 20 years. So a career's worth of research has been boiled down into a practical, helpful tool that readers can apply to their life pretty much instantly, because every page, every chapter is a tool you can put in your toolbox, which I really love that, because for me, it's like, how do I stack this mindset toolbox with a lot of tools? Because I find myself needing different items at different times. So like a work event or a fitness event or a mountain challenge might require a different skill set. And you've done a great job of that. And it's boiled down into living this heroic life. How do you really break down what that heroic life looks like?
Yeah, I want to step back because you use tools, and you could have used the phrase that, which of course they are, but the Stoics talked about having an armamentarium. So literally a weapons storehouse. And Epictetus' Enchiridion, we translate into English as handbook, right? So it means the handbook. And I had his book in mind when I created my book, but the word didn't actually mean handbook. It is more properly translated as like ready at hand and like a dagger, like a weapon you can hold in your hand. That was his wisdom was ready at hand. It was, an armamentarium you can go to, or a tool shed you can go to for the right tool, for the right weapon you need to face life's challenges. So knowing your background with the, back mountain or backcountry stuff and with the military, I find that metaphor really helpful.
So helpful.
And even the talk I mentioned to you in the prelude, I was the first soft truth event. The first soft truth is people are more important than hardware. Okay, that's one of my slides in my talk. And then the next slide is, okay, and the first life truth is the ultimate war is in here. It's not out there. So how do we get the weapons and the wisdom to win that war, that's incessantly going on? And I like to say that when we live with Areté, when we show up as our best selves, we are heroic. We don't need to wait until we've checked everything off of our bucket list or done all the things we think we need to do. The moment we show up and express our best selves, we are heroic. There's a whole chat around what it means, the ancient word for hero, which I'll just go to. The word hero in ancient Greece, I've asked a lot of people if they know what that word means. The only one who was the guy who taught me, Chris McDougall, Born to Run, Natural Born Heroes.
Yeah.
He talks about the fact that in ancient Greece, when they came up for a word for hero, because they had to come up with the word, it didn't mean killer of bad guys or tough guy or anything like that. The word hero means protector. So a hero is a protector. A hero has the strength for two to protect those they care about. And it's my stance that we're all called to be heroes today. We have more than enough victims. We need to step up, do the hard work to forge that strength. And our secret weapon is love. And this is, again, what I talk to when I talk to the military. I talked to the U.S. men's national team not too long ago. It's love for their country, go out and make us proud, and be there for your team, be there for your family. But those are some ideas as to what it means for me to be heroic. Obviously, we can drill in any number of different ways.
That's so good, man. I love that. I love that analogy. I love the metaphor of all of that being a protector and protecting those around you. And that really gives your life value, meaning, and purpose too. So you are battling back against that anxiety and depression at the same time.
100%. I mean, and again, that's the Bhagavad Gita, Gandhi's spiritual Bible is it's set on a battlefield. So it's a metaphor for the battle going on within our minds. There's a reluctant warrior. The guy's like the best archer, he's the best warrior of the earth. He's a Navy SEAL, a Ranger, put whatever the modern metaphor would be, who doesn't want to go to war, and he's being counseled by his God, no, go play your role well. So, and Socrates was a renowned warrior. Before he was Socrates, he was literally a renowned warrior. And he says that the greatest combat, again, is internal. It's that battle between the best within ourselves and the less than awesome. The ancient Greeks, like when you live with Areté, you experience what they called eudaimonia. Eudaimon, you is good. Daimon is your soul, your guiding spirit. Now, the diminutive of daimon is demon. So that's where we get demon. There's the best within you. There's the not so awesome within you. And who's going to win that battle,
Yeah.
The wolf you feed, right? So how are you focusing your mind? How are you showing up day in and day out and earning that trust and winning that war, And every day you got to, restart the campfire metaphorically and go win the war again,
And you talk a lot about that every single day with your slogan, Antifragile, which I love so much. I want to put Antifragile on a shirt and wear it around every day, because that is such a good way to tie everything together. And with your writing on Antifragile, you talk about every day we're going to have challenges. Some days those challenges are going to be way more intense than others. And as that intensity wraps up, we have to dig into our protocols. We have to create this anti-fragile lifestyle. So when things get hard, we go back into what's going to get us out of that. And we lean in hard when life gets harder, which certainly brings up, what are some of those protocols that's going to get us through those hard things in life?
Yep, dude, I love the idea so much. This is my New Year's tattoo. I added Antifragile Confidence on it. That's the thing that, guys like you and other real elite performers that are training the most elite performers, this is the idea that they love the most. The idea of forging And it's the second objective, as you know in the book, forge anti-fragile confidence. So first you got to know the ultimate game. Then you got to know rule number one of the ultimate game. It's supposed to be hard. So, the story we're telling ourselves that it shouldn't be hard is arguably the number one thing getting in our way of enjoying the process of doing the hard work to craft a great life. But the idea of forging anti-fragile confidence is my favorite, concept in the book, and frankly in my life. But two terms: anti-fragile confidence. So anti-fragile, as the name sounds, is the opposite of being fragile.
Yep.
But Taleb's the one who coined the word, and until I had heard him say it, I'd never thought of anything other than being resilient. So if you're fragile, you break when life hits you. If you're resilient, you withstand more pain, then eventually you break down, but you bounce back faster than most. But it's not the opposite of being fragile. The opposite of being fragile is when life hits you, you literally get stronger, boom, like that. And so his metaphor is the wind extinguishes a candle, but it fuels a fire. So the question is, what are you? When life hits you, whether it's with an energy challenge, a health challenge, or a work challenge, or a relationship challenge, or all three at once, what do? The old me, and me when I'm not feeling as heroically enlightened, I would go off the rails, and I would do all the things I know I shouldn't be doing, frankly. This is when the binge eating, binge watching, binge drinking, fill in the blank comes in. But what if instead we double down on our protocol and we do the things that we know we should do? When you do that, you build confidence, true confidence. So the word confidence, comes from two other little Latin words, confidere, intense trust. So if I want to build intense trust in any relationship, I have to do what I say I will do. So you and I have a scheduled time to connect. If I don't show up, you'll give me a pass because you know enough about me and maybe something came up.
Yep.
But if I don't show up again, you're like, dude, I don't trust this guy and you shouldn't trust me.
For sure.
So I like to look, if you want to build a relationship in which you trust yourself intensely to respond to life no matter what happens, you have to do what you say you will do. And if you say you're going to eat, move, sleep, spend time with your kids in a certain way or whatever, and you're not doing those things, and I'm not asking for perfection, but if you're not doing those things consistently, you're eroding your trust every single time you fall short of your standards.
Man.
Stated positively, when you more consistently do that, you build more trust. And then when life hits you is when you're most committed to your protocol, then everything changes.
Man.
Even 5-10% better. It's like, oh, shoot, that used to take me off the rails. Now it slows me down, makes me more focused, and I'm literally getting stronger. Like I'm hitting the gym, using those challenges as weights to forge my, again, anti-fragile confidence. And it's life-changing with that subtle but significant distinction.
Man, that is so helpful, especially when you think about wind blowing out a candle, but fueling a fire. That visual is exactly what is going on with us in the gym when we're training under heavy weights. It's also what's going on as we navigate through a very difficult business situation or a business financial crisis, like not letting that stuff blow us out, but digging in and plowing our way through it. With the confidence, one thing that I was curious your feedback on is externally, what I see a lot is folks can be very trustworthy with meeting external commitments. So they can make the appointments, but they cannot seem to meet those internal commitments with themselves. And you see that confidence drop. So maybe they're very trustworthy at work, but you will see them, missing workouts, eating incorrectly, improperly, even though they told themselves they were going to start making those changes. How do we get better at building that internal confidence?
Yeah, the first thing is just to notice it, to bring, oh, wow, that's an important distinction. You're right. I think most of us will honor those commitments. And we got some work to do on the internal commitments, So I think that's the first thing. It's just having the humility and the humanity, and then the self-compassion. We don't want to beat ourselves up. You want to shine a flashlight of awareness on it first. But then you do want to bring a hammer, and you want to hold the high standard to go, all right, well, what do I need to work on here? And then, you get clarity on, and I do different exercises, like the end of the Jim Rome interview we were talking about, that quick trip to hell.
Yeah.
You want to get sober, that this isn't a dress rehearsal. Like, show up. What are you waiting for, And then there's an art and science to behavioral change that follows that why. And then you navigate the habit loop, of installing and deleting habits. And you got to invest the time and the energy. We've been seduced to play the wrong game. Then we've been seduced to think it should be easy. And it's a big part of what you're doing is let's go deliberately create challenges for ourselves. Let's get out of the comfort crisis mentality and actually push ourselves. Same thing, but then get excited about it. These aren't chores. These are gifts the current version of you is giving to the future version of yourself. But I think you're absolutely right. And then we just need to systematically architect our lives so our prior best becomes our new baseline. All the things we've done in the past at a really high level, we just want to re-architect, reinstall, and then get really curious about how far we can go if we started consistently living this stuff, especially when we get hit hard.
And what do you mean by we're seduced to playing the wrong game?
Yeah, so this is objective number one. You got to know the ultimate game. So again, this is a 2,500-year-old challenge. So Socrates and the Stoics talked about the choice of Hercules. So 2,500 years ago, literally, Socrates is telling us about, the mythological Hercules, but he was their archetypal hero. So young Hercules is out in a forest by himself, and he comes to a fork in the road, and two goddesses approach him. One goddess rushes past the other, and she's kind of overly made up and preening. Literally, this is what the Stoics would talk about. You can see her getting ready to snap a selfie and put it up on Instagram. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, all right, here we go,
Yep.
And she tells Hercules, follow me, and I'll give you an easy life. You just follow me, life of luxury and ease. It's going to have it all. Oh, and by the way, she lies to Hercules and tells him that her name is happiness, but her real name is vice, right? So the other goddess sits back quietly, and then she steps forward, and she's got this stern, austere beauty to her, no pretense. And she says, Hercules, nothing that she just told you is true. If you follow me, I guarantee you a life of hardship and challenge, but you're going to live a life worthy of your own respect and of the respect of the gods. If you follow me, that's what I promise you. Goosebumps. Don't promise you the easy stuff, but you'll get the ultimate reward. Her name was Areté. So the goddess Areté is the one that Hercules chose to follow. That virtue, that excellence, going for it, knowing that it's supposed to be hard. So we've been seduced. 2,500-year-old challenge that's just amplified to the nth degree in today's society with social media and all this. Fame, wealth, hotness, Instagram followers, square footage in your house, all the silly things that, not that they don't matter, but they don't matter relative to living a good, noble life in which you're trying to be a better person, you're deepening relationships, and you're making a contribution, independent of all the fame and wealth and hotness, et cetera. That's what a life of meaning is about. Anyway, that's now getting me fired up. I think, and again, all philosophers across all time have said we've been seduced to play the wrong game. But the more pernicious thing is wrong game, and we've been told it should be easy.
Yep.
So then if you succeed in that, you're still not happy. If you don't, you're not happy, and then you think something's wrong with you. And it's just this very interesting dynamic that you got to step back from just half an inch, and then everything can change. It's David Brooks's Second Mountain. Same exact thing. Mm-hmm. First mountain, second mountain. Know what a good life is all about. Live in integrity with that.
And I think it's really helpful for the audience to know that you are backing this up with your own personal life too. It's not like you personally have had this really easy life where you haven't been through crazy hard challenges early on in life and later on in life with business challenges, but you personally had to dig yourself out of a hole. I remember on the Jim Rome podcast hearing the story about coming out of law school and struggling with deep, dark depression on a suicidal level. So you've built yourself out of some dark times by using these principles. What did that journey look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really important part of my story, lower middle class, blue collar, conservative Catholic family. My dad was a good man, but struggled with alcohol, worked in a grocery store for 39 years. His dad struggled with alcohol, ended his own life. So my joke now is it seems like I lost both the genetic and the environmental lottery on that one.
Man.
First college student, UCLA, thought I'd go to law school, get a stamp, let me play the game. I'm a smart guy. I can go make my money and all that kind of stuff. I knew I didn't want to be there. Left law school, had none of these skills, and was in that dark spot of, I just don't know. I had the same intensity then as I do now, had no idea what I wanted to do, couldn't see how I was going to fit in and live a life of meaning. And then systematically kind of architected my life over the course of the last 25 plus years now. And then, again, this has been my obsession. So what's the source of my drive? Pain. I mean, even in that Jim Rome chat, I got more clear than ever before that, my life's work is almost like trying to find my 17-year-old dad. My dad, when he was 17, we do some different things with the military. Well, my dad was in the Navy, enlisted at 17. Could I have found the officer who could have trained the guy that trained him and given him some distinctions that might have helped him with his own mental toughness, et cetera? My dad worked in the grocery store. How do we serve corporations with some of these ideas? He was really into sports. All right, we're starting to do some stuff with sports teams. Like, how do I work? How could I have found him to give him a distinction or two or three? But yeah, and then, systematically over that period of time, just really passionate about understanding these ideas, more importantly, trying to live them, and then, teaching people and training them and trying to integrate, again, not just the ancient wisdom, but the modern science, my own experience, and just common sense, dude. None of these things are, nothing I've said, I don't think so far is like, oh, no, that's out there. These are obvious things that we just need to make common sense, common practice. They just happen to have been, the truths have been echoed across all these traditions, and modern science confirms what we're discussing.
I've used a ton of Bluetooth speakers over the years, and they all have never quite had enough output for me to really have an awesome home gym workout on a Bluetooth speaker. But the Turtle Box is in a whole new ball game. They have leveled up this product, so the bass and the output you get out of a Turtle Box is quite amazing. It's funny how we started using them at the lab. We had an awesome sound system at our new lab here in Bozeman. We were using it so much, we actually blew our brand new system out. We went right to the Turtle Boxes. And so we paired two together in the lab, and that was a lot of output for the Mountain Tough team and all of our testing to have phenomenal sound in our gym for a great workout with great music. We know there's a ton of Mountain Toughers training in their basements, in their garages, and I know a lot of you are looking for great sound to play some music in the background to your MGDs or your kettlebell diesel. This is a great product for you to check out. Turtle Box is at a whole new level. The bass and the volume you can get out of that box. It's a sweet product. You guys can check them out at turtleboxaudio.com. Again, that's turtleboxaudio.com. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. I think it'd be fun to unpack this for a while, because what we're seeing in the news, it's been obvious for a little while that suicide's at all-time highs, anxiety's at all-time highs, depression's at all-time highs. But if we take it down further, even in our small community, we saw this really increased level of suicide this winter. And there was like 5 in 1 month in our small little town, but 2 of them were really close to us, and they were, kind of friends of friends that we knew. Well, what was really interesting was the 2 that we knew were like strong men, great jobs, like really high level professional jobs, beautiful families. So from the outside looking in, kind of everything was put together for kind of this high quality American life. But those internal demons were coming at them from some direction that, we'll probably never know. But this increased rate of suicide in American men is pretty fascinating, especially from how technology is at its highest level. Our ease of life, our comfort, our safety has never been better than it is today. But because of the things we're going after and the protocols that maybe we're not applying to our life, because life has gotten so easy, suicide, depression, and anxiety is through the roof. And we're seeing that at a ground level. What are some of the factors do you think is contributing to that?
Well, I'm sorry to hear that first with your community and, that you're friends of the friends. And what arose for me is the invisible disabilities is a phrase that I gave a talk on Mental Health Day for a large organization. And the woman that introduced me, that was like a phrase in her bio. And it just hit me, And then my first slide of that talk was a picture of my family 25 years ago.
Yeah.
We look so happy at a wedding. Everybody's literally, it's like the idyllic, there we are in a church, a wedding. Everybody looks great. They're super happy. You didn't see me, my struggles I had a year before then. You don't see my dad struggling with alcohol, almost certainly depression. My brother, my sisters have their own challenges. Like there's just these invisible disabilities. For me, the thing that I found that you couldn't pay me to sacrifice now are the basic fundamentals: eating, moving, sleeping, principally, breathing, and focusing our minds. So, if you're not getting 7 hours of sleep, that's like I train my sleep, my recovery like a sport. I train hard enough to have the energy I want for my work and love, and not any harder. That's kind of my current approach. All right, autopilot, nutrition, movement, simple. Let's go. All right, I'm feeling good. Done. Check the box. Sleep with asterisks. If I'm traveling, you're pushing some edges. All right, you do what you need to do. But otherwise, I'm in bed for 9 to 10 hours a night. So I'm on a circadian clock here, right? We live out in the country. The sun sets at 5:20, 5:30. Kids are in bed. We're in bed 7 o'clock. I went to bed like at 7:05 last night.
Amazing.
Sun's down, we're down, right? So getting that circadian rhythm and getting the sleep that I know that I need. If I can go back and reach your friends, that's where I would start. Or the friends of the friends, independent of knowing that 80% of us are struggling with some form of anxiety or mental health issues, depending on the stats that you believe. If it isn't us, it's a loved one. The conversation's over. I mean, that's just the truth of our modern reality.
Yep.
But what I do is I talk about what we're talking about right now. Objective one, you got to know the ultimate game, because I can go check all the boxes, dude. So I've got this. I've got a beautiful family. I've got a job that everybody says I should love, but I don't. I got this. I got this square footage, and I'm impressing you, right? But why am I not impressing myself? Stephen Covey said 30 years ago, you get to the top of a ladder and you look around and you realize you put it against the wrong wall.
Wrong ladder,
but
wrong wall.
Telling you the right wall. So what if we slowed down? And what if we started playing the ultimate game? What if we knew it was supposed to be challenging, and then we forged the Antifragile Confidence? So I would go back and systematically try to understand their fundamentals. How are you eating? How are you moving? How are you sleeping? And then I'd look back at them at their best and what they were doing and all the other things that one can discuss. But what I've found is the scaffolding, and what I teach is the basic core fundamentals. If you don't have those right in our modern society, good luck. Under the pressure that we all feel and the wrong game that most of us are playing, you're going to have a really, really tough time. So to me, it all starts with energy. Science affirms that. That's the number one virtue, zest, most highly correlated with well-being.
Yeah, zest is the number one thing to correlate with well-being. And so that's like your vitality for life, your passion for life, waking up excited to go pursue your mission, excited for those people around you. It's like that person that lights up the room, correct?
Yeah, and I go all the way down to like mitochondrial functioning, like nuts and bolts of your energy. If that isn't solid, yet your physiology is driving so much more of your psychology than you think. Chris Palmer wrote a great book, Harvard MD, called Brain Energy, in which he makes the connection between your physiology and your psychology. I've been talking about this for years, and he had a great way to describe that. But your gut, for example, is producing 80 to 85, 90% of your body's serotonin, considerably more than your brain. So if your nutrition is off and you're drinking your sugar, you're eating all these refined foods, good luck. Having a positive mindset. Again, these basic fundamentals that you may not connect to your mental toughness, let alone your mental health, are absolutely foundational. And a few different tweaks there, and Jim Rome in that interview again, he kind of playfully asked me to try to get a different answer. Yeah, so you can't change your life overnight, right? And he wanted me to go off on that. I'm like, well, of course I know where you're going, but
Sleep.
you can.
Yeah.
If you're getting 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep, go get yourself another hour of sleep tonight. You literally can change your life overnight. I am two different people. There's a version of me, I never get 4 hours of sleep, but I rarely get 5, if ever. But 6 hours of sleep, me, versus 8.5 hours of sleep, me, two different Brians. Literally two different human beings. I like this one a lot more. So I prioritize it,
Such an easy change too. And they back it up with science also. I think you mentioned this where your IQ levels with low sleep versus adequate sleep is like off the charts difference.
It's totally different, dude. Your memory changes. So you actually have a better memory for negative things when you're tired. And then what do you crave? You crave all the sugary foods. It becomes a vicious circle. So, playfully, what today started yesterday is a big part of my work. So shut down completely, having the discipline to end your workday, having the discipline to end your electronic consumption, and then prioritizing being the hero of your own story rather than watching pseudo heroes on the screen, whether that's on a football field or on some Netflix show you're binge watching. Like, just make the decision that you want to be entertained rather than actualized. Or one or the other. Which one do you want? Do you want to be entertained or do you want to be actualized? And then simple tweaks of that extra hour of sleep tonight. The number of times I've had people tell me how much that changed their life is remarkable. And again, the science confirms, again, that's an obvious thing. And you guys are backcountry athletes. Like, you're not staying up till midnight when you guys are out doing your thing. Like, I'm sorry. Like, really? We're not wasting the fuel for the fire on that. And again, rare asterisks, et cetera. But you're aligned with those circadian rhythms. And we evolved for millions of years with the only source of blue light being the sun. And now you can create an artificial sun 24 hours a day. And you can't tolerate that with all the inputs, with none of the stillness and the silence to process and digest this. I'm most concerned about the next generation.
Yeah.
Our generation is one thing. But it's the next generation where the suicide and self-harm rates, particularly among young girls, they're terrifying, and you connect that back to a lot of different variables, but the social, technology and just the disruption of all these things we're talking about. We need to step up, and start living in integrity for ourselves. And again, the protector of our families and of our communities and being that change and being that influencer. That frankly makes it cool to have these conversations.
Yeah.
This is what's more compelling than striving to be the best version of yourself you can be, especially when you're playing this game. It's not so much so I can impress you with my Instagram followers and my square footage of my house and my whatever car, it's like, no. This is why we do what we do. And again, it's the community you work with gets it. Like when I'm sharing this with military folk, I don't need to explain this part of it to them.
They get it.
They understand what purpose-driven life looks like, where they're literally willing to give their life for me and for your family and for our country. It's like, all right, you got that part right. Now we need to get you, up to here, because 30,000 suicides in the military, vis-a-vis 6,000 people lost on the battlefield over the last 20 plus years. Like that's heartbreaking. We got to teach these basic ideas and these fundamentals. And you can, again, build the scaffolding. So you still have highs and lows because you're human. But when you do these basic things, you get like a safety net almost, you know what I mean? Where you're not going all the way down to that depth of despair. And there's a certain bounce back, and then you can rebuild that meaning from that source of physiological strength.
I agree so much. What I find is adding these protocols to your life, they do start really stacking on top of each other. And you get away from like chronic bad nutrition, chronic under exercise, chronic lack of sleep starts really stacking on itself negatively. But with protocols, I find with the Mountain Tough community, that good fitness makes you more tired. So now you have good sleep, better sleep. Now your brain is firing quicker. So they all start stacking in this positive direction. And I think you can get to a point where on your absolute worst day, you're still at like 100% better than most people's best day, because your worst day is not nearly as bad because of that positive snowball that you've created through adding these things to your life year after year, day after day.
That's exactly it. I like to say your highs get higher and your lows get higher.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, your new lows are higher than your prior highs, and they're genuine. Like you know what you did. You know what I mean? Your prior highs were like come and go. I don't know, how did I make that happen? So your new highs have like a stability, and you know how you created it. And then you got that scaffolding where you're never going to go that far down. And to your point, not only are you potentially 100% better than the average, you're 100% better than the old you. And then those days that you don't have it, but you show up anyway, within the constraints of that quote bad day, are your best days because you didn't go off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
And you know you're the type of person who doesn't go off the rails anymore. That's what I'm talking about with confidence and anti-fragile confidence. And then if you can take it one step further, and after one of those days where you kind of let it slip, you rebound and you come back even stronger, there's a certain sense of true trust that you have in yourself that's difficult to put into words, but I can feel it present right now. You know what I mean? That we've all felt at different times. So you just need to operationalize and make the protocol. And then again, life just becomes a lot more fun and interesting and much more like a game. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, if I tweak that, this happens. And yeah, I did that. And yep, that happens. You know, and then let me stack together some more of these positive routines. And the protocol is a checklist. So again, this is what I kind of teach in different contexts. You'd never get on a plane with a pilot who didn't have a checklist.
For sure.
Never.
For sure.
You shouldn't get a surgery with a surgical team that doesn't have a simple checklist. Very basic. Because they kill 47% more people without a checklist than those who have it.
Insane.
So I say, you need a checklist. Like, what's your checklist? You know, I got my checklist. Literally, we built our heroic app to help people know their checklist, and then boom, hit it. I'm in bed for 9 to 10 hours. I meditate for at least 15 minutes to train my mind. And I do very simple movement, you know, 1 sun salutation, 10 pull-ups, 100 burpees, 1,000 meters of rowing, and 10,000 steps. 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000 every day. Hard to have a really bad day when I do those things.
Baseline.
And then I got 3 things I do in work, dude. Easy things. 3 things I do in my relationship with my wife and kids. Easy things. But I do those, especially when I don't feel like doing those things, which is often, you know, whatever. And that's it. Those simple protocols. And they're not chores. Another pain in the butt thing you have to do. They're gifts, and they're part of the game of showing up and, again, feeling the power that comes when we live in integrity with these ideas.
Yeah, they're blessings. I mean, we have this air to breathe. This is our limited time on this earth. And a lot of people would die to have like the physical ability to do 100 burpees today. These are like blessings and gifts that we don't want to waste. And it's also really interesting too that the science now, like some of the latest science coming out, is actually talking about doing hard things is correlated to an area of our brain. And the more that we commit to those hard things and do them, that area of our brain starts to grow and grow, which is just like the coolest thing ever.
Dude, my wife was talking about the Huberman Goggins podcast.
Yeah.
And I think,
yeah,
I read books, so I haven't read that particular thing in the book, but I heard her tell me about Huberman going off on that. How cool is that, dude?
Yeah.
You're literally forming your brain. And we know this through neuroplasticity, but to say you're going to do the hard thing, then to do the hard thing, you're literally building a part of your brain that's forging anti-fragile confidence. Whereas if you know the thing you could do and you let a gap come in and you don't live with Areté, it's in that gap in which literally you atrophy a critical part of your brain functioning. You lost the trust in that moment that you could have gained it. Now, the exciting thing is you are where you are. So you can't go out and do a Spartan race or do one of your, expeditions yet, yet. Build the strength. Go walk around the block, do 2 blocks, do 3 blocks, start closing the gap more consistently, and boom, you can forge that literal neurological anti-fragile confidence.
To do hard things.
To imagine the power, right?
It's amazing. Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. What do the Stoics, what does your research say? What do philosophers say? How important is, like backing up, so I have my protocol is going well, I'm sleeping properly, I'm getting 7 to 9 hours, I'm training physically, mentally, meditating. Is there still one more piece to a virtuous life where I need to pursue something hard, I need to pursue something challenging, I need to go after some things that look kind of impossible, whether that's on a career aspect or whether that's a big physical challenge? Where does that come into play, fighting back that depression and anxiety and actually living a virtuous life?
Yeah, I think it's critical. I think that if you do not feel you have a sense of purpose, I would encourage you to consider make your purpose, finding your purpose, but even more centrally, get your energy up. Control the controllables, like finding your purpose, and I'm blessed. I got something I tattooed my body. All right, cool. Like that's a sacred blessing, terrifying at times as well, but sacred blessing, right? You go, let's go. But if you don't quite feel that or anywhere near that, perfect. Control the controllables. Find something that inspires you. And I would encourage you to do it physically. Get in the absolute best physical shape of your life. When you do that, your mind's working at a different level. And from that state, you'll be able to connect to your daimon, the best version of you. Ask that version of you what it thinks you should do. But if you're tired and burned out and eating and drinking all the things you shouldn't be eating and drinking, you've disconnected from the true intelligence within you. I would challenge people to get in the best physical shape of their lives. And then, your infinite potential. My coach, Phil Stutz, who's back there, where did I put him? He's back there, is in a Netflix documentary called Stutz with Jonah Hill, right? But he says, your infinite potential exists outside of your comfort zone. By definition, when you leave your comfort zone, you feel uncomfortable. But we need to get, and this is such a truism, it's ridiculous to say, but you need to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
So true,
but
though.
That's a really, really powerful thing to move from lip talk, and just theoretical, oh yeah, that makes sense, to actually doing it. And the practical tool to use for that is every single time you find yourself not wanting to do something that you really want to do, or feeling a little anxious or a little overwhelmed, the inner dialogue shifts from, assuming it is appropriate to take action. There are situations in which that's a healthy thought to slow down, assuming you know what you should do and you don't feel like doing it because you're uncomfortable. The mantra is bring it on.
Yep.
Bring it on. That pain sets me free. That's where my infinite potential exists, which again is the comfort crisis concept. But you can set high, hard goals, which science says are very wise to set. But the reality is you've got enough of those challenges in your life already. Just reorient to them, quit avoiding them and start approaching them. You do that by saying, bring it on. And then again, simplify the battlefield is what one of my friends, Mark Devine, former Navy SEAL commander, says. When you're feeling overwhelmed in the chaos, the fog of war, in his experience, simplify the battlefield. Control the controllables, have front sight focus on the one thing that you decide would be the best thing you can do, and go all in on that. And then build from that success and kind of continue to create more and more meaning. And that will always come with appropriately challenging, goals that are pushing you to show up as your best self. That's
so helpful. And it's so true to what we've seen at Mountain Tough and we've talked about on some of our other episodes is like the hardest trips of your life, the hardest expeditions of your life, the hardest workouts or training sessions, they're the best and the most memorable. So we've had some crazy hunts with the Mountain Tough team where it was like 17 days, 333% snowpack in Montana, lots of sub-zero temperatures. We're backcountry camping in little tiny hot tents. We're skiing in. We're getting pounded by snow every day. Every day, kind of feels impossible. We're never going to make it. There's some risk and some danger. And you come out the other end on that and you look at that every single time and you're like, man, that was like the best experience of my life, a highlight adventure of my life. And you contrast that with like a really easy trip or a really easy expedition or a really easy hunt. And they just feel so lame and there's nothing to them. It's like the hardest things are the best things.
Stress, yeah. I mean, and then when you're going through it in a non-expeditionary context, because when you're going through it, the story suddenly becomes, wait, something's wrong with me because I'm facing this business challenge or I'm facing this relationship challenge. I must be the problem here. And again, there's always a partial truth to that. But you got to have that embrace in the moment of, no, I'm about ready to. David Goggins talks about cookie jars. So the moment that you just described, that's his cookie jar. He goes into a cookie jar and pulls out a cookie and says, yeah. The hardest times in my life are the times that I moved through the fear and the overwhelm and the doubt, and I created something that I'm really proud of. And you got to remember to eat that. We call them hero bars when you're going through a new one right now, because the primary ingredients of your hero bar is the snowpack, the overwhelming odds of failure, and all the things you don't want to experience right now in your current challenge. So if you can reframe it, have Hercules in mind, realize that those challenges are giving you a chance to show up as your best self. If you approach them and if you do all the things we're talking about with the protocol, et cetera, then you still aren't, you're sober to the challenges, but it takes on a different texture when you have the wisdom to know that that's part of a good life, the discipline to do what needs to get done, whether you feel like it or not, the love and the gratitude for the opportunity, and then the courage to be willing to act in the presence of fear. Those are the 4 cardinal virtues, of which those are expressions of Areté. Areté is the virtue. And then the expressions of them are the cardinal virtues of wisdom, discipline, love, and courage. And then gratitude, hope, curiosity, and zest. Figuring out how you can live those and knowing you can only do those at the highest level when you're facing the challenges that you're talking about. It's, again, a subtle and significant tweak to bring more joy to our lives for sure.
Oh, it's so good. And it's so real to me how they stack on each other, because like the last 18 months at Mountain Tough, we've been pretty...
Making me want to go jump into a cold plunge right now.
That's what I was just going to talk about. Yeah.
Sorry.
We've been obsessed with cold plunging like the last 18 months. And So we go in, we have the tanks right outside of the gym, and like right now it's -20 in Bozeman. So we have actually little heaters in our cold plunge. You do not want to get in that thing, but you make yourself get in there, and then later on that day, like the hard conversation at work is easier because you built that mental toughness muscle by your mind says, do not get in that tank. You control your mind, you get in that tank. Now you're in control of your emotions. You're in control of your thoughts. You're in control of your day. So then that hard conversation later is no sweat because it takes that same muscle to have that conversation that it took to get in that tank. And then when you see a big challenge, you're like, bring it on because this isn't supposed to be easy.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And you got the underlying physiological benefits of going in the cold plunge combined with the psychological, neurological benefits, and it all spirals up. Whereas if you knew you wanted to go in the cold plunge and you didn't, you lost twice. You lost the physiological benefits you would have gotten from the cold plunge or a good workout or a healthy meal or a good night of sleep. And I would say much more importantly, you lost the psychological benefits of, because your self-image just got eroded. And you're never going to outperform a bad self-image. So you're the guy that doesn't do the hard things. So then when that hard conversation comes, there's a subtle or not so subtle pulling backness. And the opposite of what you're talking about is so true. And then when you go from -1 to +1, the difference isn't 1 unit, it's 2.
Yeah.
Because you clicked on here, you went there. And if every day you're stepping back and you create this huge gap, those are the days you want to numb yourself in whatever your chosen numbing flavor is. We've all got our own, behaviors, but dude, amen. And I'm literally sitting here as we're talking. I'm like, all right, let's for me, I get freezing out here.
Oh, it's so helpful. And I really do hope people realize that because the psychological impact that you just mentioned is so profound. And in anyone looking to start a life transformation journey really needs to know that, because if you work out in the morning, then you don't want to eat that unhealthy meal a few hours later. You don't want to have that burger and fries for lunch because psychologically you're like, I can't waste this workout. And the reverse, if you skip that workout, you've already failed on your own confidence level. And so then it's much easier to eat unhealthy because you're like, well, I didn't work out today. I might as well just call this day burned. But those psychological impacts, man, they really start stacking in a positive direction.
No doubt, dude. And again, the psychology, the physiology, the psychology, they play together. And even that bad night of sleep, if you don't get the required or recommended amount of sleep, everything is off. Your insulin, your leptin, your ghrelin, your appetite, what you crave is just different. Your desire to work out is different. And then, so I'm with you completely on that. When you do the workout, you're like, no, I'm on a roll, and you get momentum. The opposite is called literally the what the hell effect. So let's say you're going to do something, and you decide not to do it. You're going to have one bonbon, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to eat any more of that, but I'm going to have one more, no big deal. I'm going to have one Cheeto, I'm like, all right, we're good. But then it's like, well, what the hell? I already broke my rule to myself, so why don't I just have some more? I'll just indulge some more. So these bright lines we throw down, and then the protocols of what you do when you go over them, which you inevitably will, and how you rebound and get back. It's so exciting to see the difference between one spiral and then the other spiral going the other way, Let's
transition to what you talked about it earlier, but what is that version of hell that you mentioned a few minutes ago?
Yeah. So the way I frame it up is, first, I do it positively, where scientists say that a best selves diary, imagining yourself 5 years from now and your life is going the way you want. You worked hard, you got a little lucky, you're doing all the things that are resonating with you in our chat today, and you create a life that you're really proud of, right? What is your life like in 5 years? And I like to frame it up as, how energized are you? How productive are you? How connected are you? Seeing your energy, your work, and your love. See that best version of yourself and get excited about it. That's a really important part of life. And your friends that decided to end their lives couldn't see that. They couldn't see how they were going to get out of the despair they were feeling. They were literally hopeless. So creating hope is really important. Seeing a better future, having a specific target that inspires you, having agency, believing you can create it, and a plan to create it and a willingness to try multiple plans is the essence of the science of hope. So that's one of the fastest ways to build your hope. So one can imagine their best self in 5 years, right? I've been obsessing about mine at 2030, 7 years out. All right, what can I do creatively? I imagine my kids. My 11-year-old's going to be 18, dude. That's humbling.
Crazy.
You know, my 6 years old is turning 7. She's going to be 14 years old. Wow. Who am I? You know, and how am I going to be showing up in my energy, work, and love? Anyway, you do that. You get excited about that. And then we take a trip into a time machine and then imagine all the things you need to do starting now in order to create that life. And you create an insanely cool life. That's the first pass. How do you get excited? Then the second pass is, all right, come back to today and then fast forward through your life, blow right by that guy or gal, and you don't do any of those things. You just decide to keep on going. Mediocrity is fine for you. Let's go, you know? Yeah, okay. And that adds up over days or years or decades or however long you've got to live. None of us know. But let's imagine you go to the end of your life and you're on your deathbed. And not all of us will be blessed to be on a deathbed, right? Some of us might just be taken out. All right. You're on a deathbed. And that version of you clearly did not live in integrity with the things we're talking about today. And you can feel the pain of that version of you. And we want you to feel the pain of that version of you on your deathbed. And then right before you're going to take your last breath, the door to your room opens and in walks the version of you you could have become had you lived in integrity with your highest ideals.
Dang.
And, you know, every time I share that, dude, I'm like, all right, I'm awake.
That's goosebumps for sure.
Some say that's one definition of hell. To meet the version of you you could have become when it was too late to do anything about it. Now, the good news is it's not too late. So then you come back to today, you're sober, memento mori, classic practice of the ancient Stoics that Ryan Holiday, of course, has popularized. I've got his coin on my desk. Remember that. Remember that moment. And then commit right now to being your best self. And you're not going to do it perfectly, and you don't need to do it perfectly, but create that vision of your best self. Start doing an inventory of the things you do that work for you, the things that you do that don't work for you, and start building that life of deep meaning and purpose. But yeah, that's the quick trip to hell that at the end of my talk that I gave to SOCOM, and I've been blessed to speak about this, General Fenton, who runs SOCOM, invited me out to give the talk. And at the end of it, he's asking me some questions, and he says, "Hey, Brian, why don't you tell them about the quick trip to hell?" Literally, I'm like, you listen to the Romeo?
It's so helpful. Like, it's so helpful.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, it's like, it's such a powerful way to wake up to the fact that this is not a dress rehearsal, you know? Like, anything we can do to create that sobriety while making this a creative opportunity and challenge. This is not an invitation to shame ourselves. I've had my struggles, continue to have my struggles. You've had yours, continue to have yours. All of us are experiencing life, which is full of its inherent challenges. Yet we need to find the mental fortitude to start doing the things we know we could do to craft the psychology and the physiology and all the other things. Yeah, I always love going back to that, and I feel it, you know, that visceral sense. We got to go. Let's go.
Oh, it's so helpful because I think everyone has, on the flip side, everyone has seen a friend, a colleague, a family member who has taken that and owned it and changed their life over, like eating an elephant one bite at a time. They've changed their life over days, weeks, months, years. And so we've all seen that person that decided that they are going to start living to their full potential. And you see that person 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later, and you're like, man, who is this guy? Like how did he get to that level? Well, he got to that level by these tiny little things that he changed 4 years ago, and he just did them every day. They weren't these massive lifestyle changes. They were small, but he was consistent.
Dude, and that gave me goosebumps. So then my mission is to create a world in which 51% of humanity is flourishing by 2051, which was Martin Seligman's goal in the year 2000 when he founded the positive psychology movement. So that's the goal that I've tattooed to my body, right? But the thing that's so exciting about your story is that guy or gal becomes an inspiration. for his kids, for his families, for his friends. So the hero who chooses to answer the call to adventure fights their dragons, wins, learns, comes back transformed. They return with the boon. The boon is their transformed consciousness. Their boon is their transformed body and being. And then the hero becomes the guide. And they become the guide to the next generation of heroes, whether it's their kids or their friends. So the way we change the world is each of us showing up, doing the hard work to be our best selves. And in the process, our very beingness, who we are and who we're becoming, especially, by the way, if we were the one that was struggling with visible disabilities like, being overweight or obese or whatever, those individuals are even more inspiring because if they clearly conquered whatever it was that was holding them back. And then we teach everybody else what we're doing, which is why I so candidly share my own challenges in my life. I look like I got it all together. Perfect. Let me tell you about my journey.
Yep.
And that's my greatest gift, having conquered that. So we each have those challenges, which become the source of our power when we own them. That dragon, we don't need to kill it ultimately. You tame it and you ride it. And that becomes your fuel, bring it on. I'm hopping on that dragon. Like that fear, that overwhelm, that doubt, that's my fuel to go to the next level,
It's so good. And it's so true because we've seen it a bunch where someone living at their fullest potential and someone who's done it for a while, who's conquered those demons and they're conquering that journey. What we talk about a lot at Mountain Tough is that person can walk in the room and all of a sudden you start working harder. You're more focused. You stand up a little straighter. They haven't even said anything yet, but because they're in that room, that inspiration, that energy, it doesn't even have to be verbalized for it to start changing the game, which is wild.
Dude, so this is the seventh objective in my book and in everything we do, the coaches we train, et cetera, is when you do what we're talking about in your own idiosyncratic way, you cultivate what the ancient Chinese philosophers called moral charisma. There's a felt sense of rightness in someone who's living in integrity. So they called it moral charisma. Gandhi called it soul force. Martin Luther King quoted Gandhi. Today's Martin Luther King Day. We're filming this on Martin Luther King Day.
Yep.
So Martin Luther King quoted Gandhi, his hero, in his I Have a Dream speech, and he talked about soul force. That was what he tried to cultivate in his community. There's an ineffable sense of power in someone who is living in integrity with their highest ideals that you feel. Literally, neuroscience can measure this. And people, we evolved to trust those people. We want to follow those people. We want to get up and be that version of ourselves. You know what I mean? It's like, this is it. And that's how you activate your latent potential. And it's within all of us. And then it's just removing the things that are in the way, putting in some other things and making the whole thing a joyful kind of creative project,
That's beautiful. Yeah, we've all seen it where you're at a conference in a huge room and for some reason there's that one person you want to talk to. You don't know them. They haven't said anything. They're across the room and like that soul force impact, like all of a sudden you start gathering with that group of like inspirational folks. The energy is crazy. Brian, a couple other questions for you. I know you're busy and we're getting towards the end of our time together, but there was a couple things that we haven't unpacked yet that I was just curious about. One is the daily Stoic literature and Ryan Holiday's work. He does tie back to how the Stoics talk a tremendous amount about the serenity prayer type language of just worry about what you can control. Don't worry about the uncontrollables at all. Those things are going to bog down your life. What are your thoughts on that?
100%. I mean, this is rule number one. That the serenity prayer is just an extension of Stoicism. I mean, that is a literal influence by an expression of Stoicism. So God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So rule number one of Stoicism is some things are within your control and other things are not. Focus on the things within your control. That's Stoicism, like full stop. So what's within your control? The weather, the political climate, relationship challenges outside of yourself, whatever other things that are out there. Reality out there, you cannot control. What you can control are your thoughts and your behaviors. So that's the essence of a good life. And when you do that, there's a serenity, there's a tranquility, there's a peace, there's an equanimity, and you have more than enough to worry about, focusing on your own thoughts and behaviors. A lot of people come to me like, yeah, what about my relationship and this and that? I'm like, not a relationship counselor. What I'll tell you is you got to take care of yourself.
Yep.
You got more than enough work to do on you. You go do that long enough, and you're going to have an impact on those around you, or relationships will naturally and healthfully evolve. But yeah, that's it, dude. I mean, this is John Wooden 101. This is Viktor Frankl 101. Between a stimulus and your response, there's a gap. In that, between stimulus and response, is your freedom to choose to close the gap. Frankl was a practicing Stoic, literally. I mean, he was a student of Epictetus. And these guys, he's in the Holocaust, the worst possible circumstances, didn't have control over that. But he did have control over how he would respond. He was a therapist in a concentration camp. So he played his role well. And he served those who were there to help them find solace and meaning within the tragedy and the horror of what they were experiencing. So, that's essential to a good life, to be able to, choose our response to any given situation.
Yeah, choose our attitude regardless of any external circumstances.
Yep. And then the behavior. What am I going to do? So this happened. What am I going to do? That's always within our control. And even the attitude, the moment it happens, there's a flash. We're human, the Stoics would say. If someone punches you in the face, you literally have a natural response. So they spit on you or whatever, you got a natural response. But you get 3, 4, 5 seconds in that, right?
Yep.
And then maybe another 30, 45, 60 seconds in that. But then after that, you are either making a conscious choice or so unconscious that you're just letting the old patterns take hold. But you have and must exercise the control, radically accept, what do I want? And then now what needs to get done, which is part of what I talk about with targeted thinking to kind of extend it. But yeah, that's it's Stephen Covey habit number 1, be proactive. You have to be able to choose your response if you want to create a life of meaning.
Yeah, and Dr. Jason Selk in Relentless Solution Focus talks a ton about that too, which is so helpful where, problem, you can stew on that problem. If you stew on that problem for more than 60 seconds, that cortisol drip is going to start in your brain. And you can stop that entire cortisol drip by just pivoting that thinking to thinking of solutions. Has been extremely helpful for me. Just like problem, okay, what's the next action step? Problem, okay, what's the next action step? Because like the last thing I want is a slow drip of cortisol on my brain all day long and chronic over time. That can just cause so many issues.
100%. Yeah. So it's victim to creator. And I love relentless solution focus. 60 seconds. All right, the clock is up. And then it's what do I want? So what do I want? And then what do I need to do to get it? And then take action. That solution focus. Yeah, it's brilliant. And then again, yes, we'll leave it at that. That is an extraordinarily powerful practice to move from victim to creator to hero. Quit complaining. Never complain, blame, gossip, criticize, etc. You're giving up your agency. You're giving up your power. Accept what it is. If you need to complain for 60 seconds, do it. And then boom, relentless solution focus. What do you want? What do you need to do to get it? Next, let's go.
It's so good. Brian, in closing, I did want to just cap it off with, I really admire in your book how you talk about working with your son, and your son is navigating chess tournaments. And I really admire how you're talking openly about how you're going to pass down some of these attributes to your kids and your family. And I go through the same thing. I have 2 daughters. They're 11 and 9. So I'm always thinking with the same mentality of like, we're blessed at Mountain Tough where we're in a human performance lab all day long. So the protocols are around us all the time. But a lot of what I spend time and energy on lately is I got to pass down as many of these principles to my daughters. How am I going to make my daughters more mentally tough? How am I going to help them navigate through this high-tech world that they're in and entering? What are your few key nuggets in closing on passing down these principles to the next generation?
Dude, you're doing it. Number one, number two, and number three is you better practice your philosophy. You better be the change. I mean, I got an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old in 2 weeks. Right, she's 6 now, so we're right on the same track there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, kids aren't listening to us; they're watching us. So embracing these ideas, truly embracing challenges, that growth mindset that Carol Dweck talks about, who's my number one parenting influence, to really love challenges, to lean into them, to celebrate them, to talk to your kids about them. Literally, I love challenges. This is hard. I love this. This is how I'm going to get better. Mistakes are great. This is how I learn. A lot of the things I talked to Emerson about in the book, but unquestionably, who you are and who you're committed to being is the most important part of this. Joe DeSena wrote a book on parenting as well, the guy that started Spartan Race and all that, who's a dear friend and soul brother of mine. Dude, parents are soft. You're not going to raise, mentally tough kids if you're not mentally tough. And we don't need perfection again, but you've got to be stepping up and doing these things and studying it, practicing it, connecting with people, who are committed to these ideas, even the Soul Force conversation. A good conference that I imagine you guys whenever you guys are getting together, that the energy in that room is different. Literally. Than the energy in the bar, or some other group that's not as selected for these ideas.
Yeah.
But ultimately it's you, showing up and doing your best and sharing your struggles. And I wish my dad had been taught half of this or a quarter of this, and then talk to me about his own challenges and when he fell short, repairing it and using that as an opportunity to teach me the things that he wasn't taught. So that's now a long kind of meandering answer to your question, but I see your power and your commitment, and that's the gift. I mean, that's a sacred gift to your girls and inspires me to show up as a better man. And I think us coming together in this dialogue, leveling each other up, is ultimately what it's all about.
That's super helpful. It's really helpful because it does add clarity on making it very simple too, because rather than thinking too much about what should I do to talk to them or to teach them, which is helpful, but there is a lot of simplicity, and just if I live the best life possible myself, then just the kids are going to soak it up like a sponge. There is some clarity in that, which is really helpful.
Yeah, and then there's a longer conversation about all the details, but yeah,
for sure.
You don't do this part, and the other stuff's just like lip service, Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Lead by example. Well, Brian, thank you so much, man. This is a true honor. I was really dying to have you on the Mountain Tough show. I was so excited about it after grabbing the book and listening to that Jim Rome episode. I couldn't wait. So I was pumped, and what you're doing is a blessing to a ton of people, and you're making a huge impact with your book and the app. Tell folks where to get the book, and tell folks more about the app as well, please.
Right on, man. Well, I just appreciate you, dude. I appreciate your calm confidence and just your mountain groundedness. There's like a power in your presence that I admire, and appreciate you inviting me to be here and just having such a great conversation. So thank you for your kind words. Thank you for the great chat. And thank you for just who you are and your presence. Super inspiring. And I'm literally going to go jump in the cold plunge, thinking of you with your heater in your cold plunge. Let's go. Yeah, I mean, the book, Areté, Arete, if you're listening, buy that wherever you get books. And then our app is called Heroic. You can find that in iOS, Android app stores. Heroic, we're the training platform. We've got a lot of my thing is I distill books into Philosopher's Notes is kind of how a lot of people got to know my work. So 650 books from all the ancient Stoic, ancient wisdom traditions, modern science. I break down into 6-page little summaries, 20-minute MP3s you can listen to on the go. That's what a lot of real peak performers love the most in what I've done. We've got a ton of other stuff in the app, including some practical tools. We've got a coach certification program. We've trained 10,000 coaches from 100 countries, including some really elite performers across different domains. Yeah, and that's the basic idea. So heroic.us for the website, heroic.us/coach, if you want to learn more about that side of things. all of it's grounded in science. All of it's been proven by science. We've worked with some of the world's leading well-being labs to prove that what we're talking about works when, of course, you work it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's where people can find us. And again, just super grateful to be able to connect with you and your community.
So awesome. And everyone listening really should grab the book. When I grabbed my copy, I was hooked right away because I love the value of reading one page, and you're just so pumped after reading that one page. You're like, let's go. We're going to crush today, because essentially each page is a principle. Each page is a tool backed by science that you can apply to your life today. So for busy professionals, or really anyone, they should know that you're not going to read a 100-page chapter. You're going to read a page, and you're going to be able to apply that principle like 5, 10, 15 minutes later throughout the day. That was huge for me. I love that style of book where it's like daily food. All right, let's go. That was awesome.
Right on. I appreciate that. I had actually written 80% of that long chapter of it. I'm like, that's not me, dude. And people are busy. Get in, get out, give them the wisdom they need in less time, and hopefully, connect in a way that inspires them to do exactly what you just described. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, that was great. Well, thank you, Brian. That was an honor and privilege, and thanks so much for being on the show, and enjoy your day in beautiful Austin, Texas.
Likewise, man. Enjoy your sub-zero day in Bozeman, Montana, brother. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. That was a great conversation with Brian Johnson. I hope you were listening to how powerful some of those golden nuggets of wisdom were that he was dropping throughout that episode. The one that continues to stand out to me, and I read it in his book, and he talked a lot about it today on the episode, is when life gets hard, life is supposed to be hard. So embrace that. And when it does get hard, you have to dig deeper into your protocols. Now, if you don't have protocols, we talked about that on the episode. You have to have protocols for mental, physical, spiritual, nutritional, so that when life does throw some punches at you, which it will, you can go back to that protocol, and you actually need to dig into those protocols deeper as life gets harder, so that when the wind blows, you don't get blown out like a candle. You actually fuel up like a fire. That concept is so helpful. It's been so helpful to me in my personal journey here at Mountain Tough. I know it's going to help you guys out. You can get more information from Brian on his Heroic app. I also highly recommend you order that book, Areté. It has helped me out a ton. And you can follow Brian on Instagram at HeroicBrian. Thanks so much for listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. We love having you guys here following these episodes. Make sure to leave a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts. Those mean a ton to us here at Mountain Tough, and me as well. And you can always subscribe and watch these episodes on YouTube at Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. Stay dangerous, and we'll see you guys on next week's episode. Thanks for listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. We'll see you next week.